Swaddy Cab, Jed here from Thailand Myland and the Thailand Expat Living magazine. Today I'm going to take you through some of my books that I've written about living or retiring in another country. Part 1 was last week and covered the first 3 books in the Retiree's Guide series of books. The Retiring Thailand Handbook 2025, the 10 best countries to retire in the world on your pension, and the 8 best retirement locations in Thailand. Part 1 was last week and covered the first 3 books in the Retiree's Guide series of books. This video will introduce you to 2 other books in the Retiree's series, Retired in Thailand and Living the Dream, and the Expat Handbook, a complete guide to living the dream life in Southeast Asia. I'll do part 3 later this week, which will cover 2 books, a 3-week road trip through southern Thailand and a 3-week road trip through northwest Thailand. But the first book today is my latest book, The Golden Years, Retired in Thailand and Living the Dream, which also asks the question, is 60 the new 40? I first came to Thailand in January 1983, when the cruise ship I was working on sailed into Phuket Harbour early one morning, just as the sun was rising over the Andaman Sea. Within a few days of the ship tying up, I started to dream about one day living in Thailand. In those days, Thailand's tourism industry was in its infancy and far removed from the Thailand that I live in today. Since 1983, I visited Thailand many times for holidays, but it took me 34 more years to get my wish to live here, when in 2017 I decided to retire to Thailand. But it wasn't always an easy transition, as I made many costly and time-consuming mistakes, because when I arrived I didn't have a book like this one to guide me through the difficult procedures and protocols of retiring here in Thailand. This book will give you all the information you'll need to make the transition from the life you have in your old country to living your golden years in peace and harmony in Thailand without making the many costly and time-consuming mistakes that I made when I retired to the land of smiles. Since I retired to Thailand in 2017, so much has changed, not just in Thailand but globally, mainly due to the COVID-19 pandemic that affected economies and tourism industries worldwide, including Thailand. Back in 2017, when I first arrived, the Thai economy and tourism were thriving, with 38 million overseas visitors arriving that year. The 8 years I've lived here have been exciting and rewarding, and I know that I made the right decision when I chose Thailand over some of the other countries I was considering for retirement. The main reason I decided on Thailand was the country ticked most of the boxes for the lifestyle I was looking for, so I could have a good, fulfilling life in my retirement. And those ticked boxes were a low cost of living, the availability of a dedicated retirement visa, affordable healthcare, a tropical climate, low crime statistics, affordable leisure activities, a diverse culture, friendly, welcoming locals, a thriving expat community in many areas, and the diverse beauty of the country. When I arrived in Thailand, it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. But 8 years later, I'm now living the dream life in Thailand. Many people from my generation of boomers say that 60 is the new 40. And in many cases, it's true. I certainly don't feel or look as old in my 70s as my parents did in their 70s. And I'm enjoying my life as much now as I did when I was a younger man, which is something my parents could never say. Retiring in Thailand has given me a new lease of life, and I'm more energetic and active now than before I came to live here 8 years ago. Many people put off making big decisions like moving to a new country as they're set in their ways and they're worried they may make the wrong decision. But life's for living, and it doesn't stop when you reach retirement age. In fact, it gets better, as you now have the time to do the things that you never had time to do before. due to work and family commitments. Some people hate retirement after 50 years of working most days of their lives. Many find it hard to adjust to having so much time on their hands. Personally, I love being retired. My one regret is that I didn't have the money or the foresight to retire when I was younger. As George Bernard Shaw once famously said, youth is wasted on the young. But I think that for many retirees, retirement is wasted on the old. They suddenly have all of this time and sometimes have more money than they can spend in their lifetime and have no idea what to do with it. They end up going about their lives as they've always done, living in the same town, going to the same pub or club, staying at home, watching endless reality programs on the TV, basically watching other people living their lives instead of living their own lives to the fullest. Remember, you can always get more money, but you can't get more time, and the clock's ticking. For me, retirement was an opportunity to do all of the things that I never had time to do when I was busy working and raising a family. Anyway, is 60 the new 40? There's a growing belief among biologists that 60 is the new 40, thanks to many of us enjoying longer and healthier lives than our parents and grandparents did. While I can't confirm that 60 is the new 40, I do think that if you've lived in a country with a clean, healthy environment, a modern healthcare system, good standards of housing and access to healthy food and clean water, then 60 might well be the new 40. Additionally, having great weather can be a wonderful bonus to longevity if you're lucky enough to have lived in a warm country. But in contrast, third world countries like Sudan, Bangladesh and Ethiopia, it seems unlikely that 60 would be considered to be the new 40 in those countries. In fact, it's probably the other way around. Perhaps in those countries, 40 is the new 60. But Thailand isn't a third world country. It's a wonderful country to retire to. But don't just take my word for Thailand being a great retirement option. According to the International Living magazine, which is the go-to magazine for retirees the world over, Thailand is one of the most popular countries for expat retirees to live and always ranks high in its yearly index rating. And there's plenty of reasons why that's so. For pennies in the pound, you get a low cost of living, where your income and pension will stretch much further, a tropical climate, beautiful palm-fringed beaches and islands, friendly smiling people, inexpensive housing, and affordable, high-quality medical care. Thailand is a country where Buddhist monks, golden beaches, palm trees, monkeys, and elephants will become part of your everyday life. This book will guide you through many of the procedures and protocols of establishing yourself in Thailand to live or retire. The book is crammed full of advice on every aspect of making a fresh start in Thailand. Some of the many subjects the book covers are: why choose Thailand as a retirement destination? Why is Thailand so cheap to live in compared to other countries? The importance of planning your new life in Thailand before you leave home. What to bring, what not to bring with you from your old country. What you'll need to do when you first arrive in Thailand to retire. Thailand's rich cultural heritage and traditions. And if Thailand's not for you, what about other retirement countries? And the book goes through other Southeast Asian visa options, such as Cambodia, Malaysia, Philippines, Vietnam, and Bali in Indonesia. Other chapters include hospital, dental and medical costs in Thailand, how to buy a property in Thailand, how to buy a car or a motorbike in Thailand, different visas to enter Thailand, the best retirement locations in Thailand, the importance of a hobby and keeping busy and fit in retirement. And many single men come to Thailand when they retire to try to find a special Thai lady to spend the rest of their lives with. And some of them make the mistakes, which cost them a lot of heartache and usually a lot of money. So the book also covers the importance of finding the right person to share your life with. And I know it's not a nice subject, but it's something we'll have to face one day. As Benjamin Franklin famously said in 1798, in this world, nothing can be said to be certain except for death and taxes. So the last chapter in the book is what happens if you die as an expat in Thailand. The book is also filled with helpful tips and ideas, useful websites to help you navigate through the confusion of retiring in Thailand, and some Thai words and phrases to learn before you arrive in Thailand. Because if you can converse even a little in Thai, or as they say here, nit noi Thai, it'll help you to assimilate and make Thailand your home in retirement so much easier. So if you're considering retiring to move into Thailand, this book will be invaluable, and it'll guide you through everything you'll need to know about retiring to the land of smiles. The book is available through my new website, and if you buy the book, you'll also receive a complimentary copy of the latest Retire in Thailand magazine through my website, discounted from the online stores where the books are also for sale. So follow the link to the description of this video to the website and take a look around. The books are also... The next book in this video is the Expat Handbook, a comprehensive guide to living the dream life in Southeast Asia. The book covers the 8 most popular countries in Southeast Asia for expats to retire to or to live. And those countries are Thailand, of course, Cambodia, Malaysia, Indonesia, though more specifically Bali, the Philippines, Vietnam, Laos and Singapore. I recently published my latest book, the Expat Handbook, a comprehensive guide to living the dream life in Southeast Asia. The book covers the 8 countries in Southeast Asia that are popular with expats. In our modern, ever-changing world, it's common for people to feel disconnected from the country they grew up in and once loved, especially when governments fail to address the concerns of their citizens about the troubling direction that many of those nations are heading. Some of the reasons many people are considering moving away from their country of their birth are the high cost of living in many Western countries, compared to Southeast Asian countries because of the high inflation in many countries that pushes up prices of everyday goods, whereas wages and pensions stay stagnant. Other reasons that many people are seeking another country to call home is the soaring crime statistics that are rising every year in their country of birth. There's also an open door policy on immigration that many countries have adopted that's changing the very fabric of what were once proud nations. Another reason people are leaving in droves are the higher taxes that are continually on the rise. The inclement weather seasons in many Western countries also convinces many people to move to a warmer country. Other reasons include the rise of the cancel culture that has sprung up in many Western countries in recent years, and the growing control and surveillance by Western governments on its citizens, as well as the decline of societal values over the years and the growing political instability. What holds many people back from looking for greener pastures is often the fear of the unknown, more so as we age and get more set in our ways. Most of us want security and stability in our lives. That's what most of us have worked for over the years. And the thought of risking that security and stability can cause fear and anxiety in many people. If this sounds like you, it's important to remember the fear often stems from our concerns about the future and the unknown. And these worries typically exist in our minds, but are often quite irrational. Many people dream of relocating abroad to transform their lives and fully embrace new experiences, rather than repeating the same routine week after week, year after year. However, it's fear that often holds them back from taking the initial leap. Living in a Buddhist country, I've learned that the Buddhist belief of doing good in this life leads to happier and more fulfilling existence in the next life. Now, I'm not a particularly religious person, and I often question the idea of an afterlife, but like everyone, I hope that it's true. But I've always thought that if this life is all we have, I want to make the most of it and tick off everything on my bucket list before my time runs out. There are many reasons why people from Western countries like myself are attracted to living in Southeast Asian countries, including the opportunity to immerse themselves in a new and unique culture, along with a more exhilarating lifestyle and a chance to learn new skills and find new hobbies. Also, there's the delicious, affordable food that Southeast Asia is renowned for. Its diverse restaurants, markets, street food, all of which is incredibly cheap and nutritious. Another reason people are moving to many Southeast Asian countries is most of them have relatively low crime rates, making them a safer place to live. Southeast Asia offers stunning natural beauty, including the beaches, tropical islands, mountains and jungles, providing ample opportunity for outdoor activities and relaxation. Southeast Asia's central location also makes it easy to travel to nearby countries on a regular basis, immersing yourself in a new lifestyle and culture. Southeast Asia offers more affordable housing options than back in the West, and has a slower, more laid-back way of life that many Southeast nations promote. The warm sunny climate that is found in many parts of Southeast Asia is a bonus, as is affordable healthcare services. I consider myself fortunate compared to many people who I grew up with back in my hometown in the UK. From an early age I knew that I wanted a life filled with adventure and new experiences, not a mundane life growing up in the industrial town of Middlesbrough in Yorkshire, not long after the end of World War II. And I knew that the life that my parents and grandparents had lived was not the path I wanted to follow. So at the age of 19, I set off to see the world and seek my fortune and make a new life for myself in the tropics. And I've never regretted that decision. If it all ended tomorrow, I know I've led a wonderful life enriched by travel and the chance to experience different cultures, and I've very few regrets in my life. Over the many years of travelling the world, I've come across many people who said that they would have loved to have done what I did, but they lacked the courage to give up the lives that were dealt to them. I always remind them that it's never too late to chase your dreams, as you don't want to die wondering what might have been. I mentioned earlier that I'm from the UK, but I spent a significant part of my life in Australia. And when I retired in 2017, I came to the conclusion that because of the high cost of living in Australia, if I stayed there and had to live on my government pension and my modest investments, I'd lead quite a mediocre life. And if I managed to live to the ripe old age and get the telegram from the King on my 100th birthday, as I planned to do, then my investment money would probably run out long before I did if I stayed in Australia and had to live on my pension and not have the income to do the things that I loved doing when I was working and bringing in a decent wage. After giving it some thought, I decided to look for somewhere to retire overseas. I've always been a glass half full sort of person, so when I retired, I looked at it not as the end of my life, but as a new beginning. I knew that retiring overseas would come with many problems and challenges, but I also knew that I could rise to the occasion, and it was the right decision for me to make to retire to a country where my pension dollars would stretch much, much further and allow me to have a decent lifestyle. I decided to travel to the retiree capital of the world, Florida, in the USA, affectionately known by some as God's waiting room. I tried living there for a while in Port Richey, and while I was there in that part of the world, I did a lot of research and checked out some of the Caribbean and Central American countries. While many of those countries were ideal for retirees, none of them that suited my circumstances. So in the end, I decided to head back east. In hindsight, I could have saved myself a lot of time and a lot of money exploring those countries, since Thailand was always going to be high on my list as my top pick for retirement. My journey to Thailand began over 50 years ago, in January 1983, when a ship I was working on as a chef sailed into Phuket Harbour early one morning, just as the sun was rising over the Andaman Sea. Within days of our arrival, I found myself dreaming of living in Thailand one day. In those days, Thailand's tourism industry was in its infancy and far removed from the Thailand as we know it today. Since that day in 1983, I've visited Thailand many times for holidays, but it took me 34 more years to get my wish to live here when in 2017 I retired to spend the rest of my life in Thailand. In this ever-changing world, many governments have recognised the economic and social factors of attracting expats to live or retire to their countries, and they're happy to take your money and allow you to live there. However, Thailand was the best place for me but it's just one of many Asian countries eager to welcome you, and each country presents unique living standards and lifestyle choices. I've been fortunate enough to work or spend quality time in each of those countries, and I hold a special affection for each one due to their unique attributes. Living in Thailand allows me to explore those amazing neighbouring countries, so follow the link in this video's description to my website, where you'll find all of my books on sale for just $4.99, including my newest book, The Expat Handbook, a comprehensive guide to living the dream life in Southeast Asia. But not